Hi everyone, happy Grogs Day. You know, quarantine really messes with your sense of time. Like, this week really feels to me like it's been 3 days longer than every other week since I started making these videos. In my last video, I promised you a PowerPoint presentation, so let's just get right into it. This is shapes. What are they? How do we know? How many are there? And what can we do about it? So let's just start off with that first question. What are shapes? According to Wikipedia, a shape is the form of an object or its external boundary, outline, or external surface as opposed to other properties such as color, texture, or material. So here are some examples of shapes. The fact that they are on paper, the fact that they are white with black outlines, the fact that they have your favorite words on them, that is not part of the shape. The shape is just the form without any of those details taken into consideration. Moving on to our next question, how do we know what shapes are? And one prominent theory was proposed by vision scientist Irving Biederman in 1987. That was the recognition by components theory. What he suggested was that the way that we recognize objects is by separating them into smaller, simple geometric shapes called geons. So, for instance, here are some of those more simple geometric shapes, and then here are some objects, and you can see that they're broken down into the smaller shapes, right? Like the phone is just sort of this shape. Whereas the dialer part of the phone is this shape. So every object is broken down into these smaller components, and that's how we recognize them. Now, that's sort of a bottom-up theory of processing, but there's also more of a top-down theory of processing. So psychologist Richard Gregory proposed more of a top-down theory, saying that we rely on memory and context in order to identify objects. So I think sort of the best way to think about visual perception is that it combines the two of these. You know, it combines the bottom-up and the top-down forms of processing. So we rely on memory and context in order to make sense of these basic geometric shapes. Our next question is, how many shapes are there? And I'm going to just be honest with you here. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are a lot of shapes. There are polygons, which are closed two-dimensional figures composed of straight line segments. So on our board back here, we have some polygons, right? We have this triangle, we have this parallelogram, we have this star, and we actually have a new polygon for the board today, which I'm excited to share with you. Favorite shape, isosceles parallelogram. Favorite word, marshmallow. Here it is, and now I'm going to put it on the board. There are also regular polygons, in which all of those sides have the same length, and all of the angles have the same measure. Our triangle is a regular polygon. All of the other polygons that we have up here are not. But again, and this is exciting stuff, we've got a new regular polygon for the board today. Favorite shape, square. Favorite word, bees. Here it is. So in addition to polygons and regular polygons, we also have other shapes other than those ones. One example of another shape is feather shapes. And we've got one of those for the board today. Favorite shape, feather. Favorite word, masquerade. Here it is, our feather masquerade. And then another shape is crescent moon shapes. And I've got one of those for the board too. Favorite shape, crescent moon shape. Favorite word, I'll just let you look at it for yourself. I'm so sorry to expose you to this monstrosity, but it's a nice crescent moon, so let's put it on the board. I have one more example of a shape to share with you today, and this one, I'll admit, troubled me at first. When I asked you for your favorite shapes and your favorite words, I got an extremely confusing comment. It said, "My favorite shapes are probably the cheese and Vegemite ones, although the original barbecue shapes are quite good too." Now, I had no idea what this meant until I began Googling and discovered Arnott's shapes, which are an Australian snack. Luckily for our purposes, the cheese and Vegemite flavored shape does have a very unique shape. So I've created this shape to put on the board. I was also excited to learn that this shape tessellates. Presumably that's so that they don't waste dough. But that's pretty cool. This wire is really getting in the way. Our next question is, what can we do about shapes? Now that we have this knowledge, how can we act on it? What's some good shape praxis? Well, I think that the best shape praxis is to get your shape to the end of this board. And there are a few great contributions towards that end today. Before I get into those, I just want to mention that there are a few more shapes that I have not yet put on the board, and I will do that next week. I decided to limit it to 5 shapes per week, just so that I don't overwhelm you. I said that I would move your shape along on the board if you sent me a craft, and you did some great crafts this week. Legible Potato sent me this face mask, Jam sent me these pride bracelets, Char sent me these 3D paper shapes, Megan sent me these amazing Animal Crossing earrings, and Jordan sent me this adorable going away card that they made for their neighbor. We also started to broaden the definition of craft a little bit, so Caressa made a vlog, and Katrina made an LGBTQ book recommendation spreadsheet. I'll let craft mean whatever you want it to mean. I'm gonna move your shapes along. I also said that I would move your shape along if, like me, you made a 5-slide PowerPoint presentation on a topic of your choosing. We have 2 PowerPoint presentations so far. Katrina made a PowerPoint about gender, and Jam made a PowerPoint about Esperanto. I neatened up the board a little bit. Here it is, so that you can see how your shape is doing. I had a bit of a problem in that I lost track of which shape went with which person for a few shapes and people. So if I did not move your shape along today, and I should have, I've made a Google form, which is a submission form, so that you can tell me which shape is yours and which task you did. One example of such a craft was Emu's wonderful portrait of toilet paper, which is a precious commodity in these times. So please do tell me which shape is yours so that I can move it along. And that craft actually inspired a new task. Take your shape, whatever shape it is that you have on the board, and create at least 3 different iterations of it. You can do this however you'd like. You can do 3 paintings of your shape. You can Photoshop your shape in 3 different ways. You could write 3 poems inspired by your shape. It's up to you. So that's your task in order to advance in this race to the end of the board. And if you haven't yet, be sure to tell me your favorite shape and your favorite word, and I'll put it on the board.